Hey, welcome to your daily briefing. If you're a developer or a builder working with AI, you know the ground is constantly shifting under your feet. And today, we're tracking some major shockwaves. Everything from new rules at the Pentagon right down to the security of your own codebase.
So today's big theme really boils down to three things: rules, reliability, and risk. From the highest levels of government down to your IDE, the guardrails for AI are being hammered into place as we speak. And for every challenge this creates, you'll see a massive opportunity emerge.
All right, let's kick things off with our lead story. It's a huge policy pivot from OpenAI. The company is basically redrawing some very important lines in the sand on a super critical partnership: its work with the US military.
Yeah, so after getting a ton of heat on this, OpenAI is swapping out that vague language for some really hard lines. They're now explicitly forbidding the use of their tech for spying on citizens, for mass surveillance, and, this is the big one, for autonomous weapons. This is them directly answering those tough ethical questions that have been swirling for months.
And you gotta understand, this isn't just about OpenAI. This move is going to have a huge domino effect. It puts a ton of pressure on every other AI company that's trying to land those big government contracts. It basically forces this conversation out into the open and sets a whole new ethical baseline for how this powerful tech gets used by nations.
Okay, so while the policy guardrails are going up, the actual technical guardrails, well, they're starting to buckle. Let's talk about infrastructure.
Twice. That's how many times Anthropic's Claude went down in just the last 24 hours. And it caused some major disruptions for developers. If your workflow relies on these platforms, you definitely felt this one. It really shines a spotlight on a critical vulnerability in the entire ecosystem. This really signals a new battleground opening up in the AI wars. It's not just about who's got the smartest model anymore. It's about who has the most reliable one. As we all get more and more dependent on these systems, uptime and stability, they're becoming the most critical features of all.
But hey, every problem is a market opportunity, right? So, enter IR Labs. They're backed by NVIDIA, and they just pulled in a massive $500 million funding round. And their whole mission? To solve the exact hardware bottlenecks that cause these kinds of outages.
So how are they doing it? Well, they're basically making the jump from the old limits of copper wiring to the literal speed of light. IR Labs is using what's called optical interconnects, using light to shoot data between chips. It is way faster, it's more energy efficient, and it's designed to just completely smash through the performance ceilings that are holding back the next generation of AI.
Okay, so that covers the hardware. Now let's switch gears and talk about software. Because while we're building all this amazing new infrastructure, the very code we're using AI assistants to write is facing a security crisis of its own.
The data from TrendAI's latest report is pretty staggering. We saw over 2,100 new common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVEs, that were related to AI just last year. That's a nearly 35% jump. And we're not talking about small bugs. These are serious, often critical flaws that are popping up across the entire AI ecosystem.
And honestly, it gets worse. According to research from Endor Labs, a shocking 90% of the code that AI assistants generate is insecure. Just let that sink in for a second. That means 9 out of every 10 snippets you might be generating could be introducing a vulnerability directly into your project.
In fact, GitHub's latest Octaverse report actually has a name for this problem. They call it AI-generated slop. The sheer volume of this low-quality, insecure code is just overwhelming open-source maintainers. They describe it as being kind of like a denial-of-service attack, but on the human code review process.
So, what's the fix? Well, a big part of it is a smarter way of scanning for these threats. There's a key technique called reachability analysis. So instead of just flagging every potential vulnerability it sees, it intelligently checks if a flaw is actually exploitable in your specific code. And the result is pretty amazing. It can cut out up to 95% of all that noise. And this is exactly where Endor Labs comes back into the picture. They've just launched a free tool called Ori that puts this analysis right inside your workflow. It plugs into coding assistants like Cursor and Claude, and as you're generating code, it uses that reachability analysis to flag genuine, exploitable threats in real time. It's a really practical solution you can use today to make your AI-assisted coding way, way safer. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground. Let's zoom out for a second and connect the dots. What are the big, high-level trends that every builder needs to be tracking based on what we've seen today? First up, ethics is becoming a real competitive moat. Like we saw with OpenAI, having clear guardrails is now a business imperative. Second, the whole AI arms race is shifting. It's not just about model intelligence, it's about model resilience. Those Anthropic outages prove that reliability is the new frontier. Third, our security model has to change. The explosion of AI-generated code means we absolutely need smarter, real-time tools. And all these trends, they point to an even bigger picture: AI's rapid vertical expansion. We're seeing it push into these specialized, high-stakes fields like mental health, driving huge valuations and making all these guardrails completely non-negotiable.
So what does this all mean for you, the person who's actually building things? Well, here's the thing. Every single challenge we talked about today is a massive opportunity in disguise.
The foundations of the AI world are definitely showing some cracks in policy, in infrastructure, and in security. So the real question isn't if they exist, it's who's going to be the one to build the tools, the platforms, and the standards to fix them. Where are you going to build the solution?
And that's our briefing for today. Make sure you subscribe so you get your daily deep dive into the breakthroughs that really matter. We'll see you tomorrow.